Students across the UK have had their lives turned upside down, and there is a persistent feeling among them of overwhelming uncertainty about the future, and for final year students, upset at the loss of their final term of university.
Communities of students have taken to Twitter and Facebook to express their concerns as to how universities will change examination processes, or to lament the loss of job opportunities, while others are feeling more isolated than they ever have before.
I've spoken to dozens of students from UK universities this week about the struggles they're facing right now as a result of the pandemic and Monday's lockdown announcement, and many of the same concerns have been arising.
Though many have said that the government was quick to provide some level of clarity on what will happen with GCSEs and A-levels, some UK universities are still in the process of deciding how they will proceed with exams during a lockdown situation, or under the government's banning of large gatherings of people.
Several students have told me that they feel like it's been impossible to motivate themselves while they're unsure of how exams will proceed, while coping with existing mental health conditions, worrying about their families, and feeling completely unsure of what the future may hold.
Megan Benham, a final year student from the University of Warwick, tells me that her mental health has been severely impacted by the stress of the virus on her way of life and family. Megan is not only in the process of preparing the last ever assignment she will write at university, but she has also just been classed as a key worker in her part-time job and is feeling the pressure like never before.
Since the disbanding of universities and the growth of the coronavirus, my mental health has suffered greatly. Before this happened, I wasn't afraid to say that I am on antidepressants, and I've been quite vocal about it. I was quite proud because my dosage had been lowered by 10 milligrams, which doesn't sound like a lot, but actually was a huge step for me. I had lots of conversations with my GP about this before we took the step. Since the added stress that the virus poses, as well as my deadlines and the worry about accommodation, I've had to go back up to 40 milligrams, which is just a shame because I'd been so excited to go down. Like I said, there's absolutely no shame in taking medication, but it felt like a big step for me, and now it feels like I'm just going in reverse. Another aspect of university life that I think is being forgotten is the fact that lots of students actually have part-time jobs. I myself work at Boots, which is now, their employees are key workers. So we have had a surge in demand for medical products due to the panic that the virus has caused. In order to meet this, I've obviously had to pick up extra hours because otherwise my shop simply couldn't cope. So as well as being a key worker, working a lot of the time, having 2 days off a week like a normal working person would, I also have to complete my university course and worry about graduation in a few months.
For others, studying remains a mere afterthought during this pandemic. A member of staff from one southern university told me that she had had an emotional phone call from a student who has been recalled to their home country for military service amid the current lockdown. She said, "When you have students going onto the front line like this, they don't even have time to think about their assignments, let alone exams, let alone whether they'll even be available to sit them. We can't be expecting them to submit their assignments on time, if at all. It's not even a question of whether we grant an extension, because that's not the point." This situation is exposing the reality of the modern student life. Students have part-time jobs. They are carers for elderly members of the family. They have cultural commitments and commitments in other countries, and all of this is being pulled into sharp relief. For Faye Kapur, however, student isolation is a very different story. A third-year English literature student on a year abroad in Melbourne, Faye decided not to return to England amid the pandemic, but is struggling with being so far from home.
Most of my other Warwick friends left as soon as they got the email from Warwick, so watching them all go has been pretty heartbreaking. Depression's been hitting me pretty hard lately, and I'm realising just how powerfully social interaction and platonic intimacy had always been there to help me fight it, and now I can't do that anymore, and I feel so alone. Even though we're all going through this, it sucks. I'm having to find other ways of battling my depression and anxiety.
Of course, many students have been fortunate enough to fly from the country they have been temporarily living in before restrictions were imposed. Gemma Wilson, who studies Spanish and economics, is one example. She was working as a primary school teacher in the south of Spain, but managed to book a flight home mere days before the country went into lockdown. Having to leave Spain so quickly has left Gemma with several anxieties about the near future, though she commends her university for providing mitigation for the time immersed in the language that she has lost.
Obviously, I'm monitoring the news from here about everything that's happening in Spain. I saw today that the death toll's actually surpassed what it is in China, which is really, really sad, especially because I have quite a few friends there now. My boyfriend lives there. So it is obviously a worrying time for everyone, as it is in the whole world. But it's all just very uncertain. Obviously, I'm happy to be back home, but I've got most of my stuff in my flat there still, so I need to go back and collect that before my contract runs out in June. Things like my progression on to next year, the university have been very helpful with everything, saying that everyone on their year abroad will be passed on to next year, even though we haven't technically completed the requisites of the year abroad, which is embedded into my course. And also that everyone's going to get mitigating circumstances for next year, because obviously we've had so much less time among the language to have the level that most people would have in their final year of doing a languages course at university. I know for me, the year abroad's been what I've looked forward to ever since I started studying Spanish in GCSEs.
While some universities are still debating whether to cancel graduations and end-of-year celebrations, others have acted swiftly to confirm that such events will not be going ahead.
Lewis Jordan, a final-year history student from the University of Leicester, told me that he was pleased with the almost immediate clarity provided by his university, who cancelled in-person teaching before things started to get chaotic, granted extensions to most essays, and have already confirmed that exams will be cancelled and marks derived from coursework. Like many other universities, however, the date for final graduation at the University of Leicester is yet to be confirmed. Universities such as Cardiff have told students that this event to mark the end of an era will be postponed, while universities like Warwick and Durham are still amid ongoing discussions. Some universities have also implemented what the University of Exeter has called a no detriment policy, which means that as long as students obtain a pass in any further assessments, including coursework as well as summer exams, their final grade will remain the same as or higher than their current average. Since Exeter made the announcement earlier this week, students from the likes of King's College London and the University of Manchester have started petitioning for their university to do the same.
While many students expressed concerns to me about coronavirus causing a hit to their motivation, or mentioned the new problem of lack of resources that they now have available, the overwhelming majority were most concerned about their loved ones. Lewis Jordan told me that living in a house with two older parents, one of whom works with the NHS, has been causing him immense worry about the health of his mother and father, and he is now having to do most of the household chores and the grocery shopping.
Additionally, students are seeing vital work experience placements cancelled or rearranged, and some do not see courses that they have had their hearts set on being financially viable in the future. Sadia Naushin is one of said students, who has just had to turn down an opportunity to start her career with a postgraduate course in London, as she will no longer be able to afford it. For others, like Ewan Grieve, a third-year physics student from Cardiff University, the effects of the lockdown on businesses across the UK have hit him immediately. Ewan was laid off from his job as a bartender in the Welsh city prior to the official closing of pubs, restaurants and bars, meaning that he is still technically an employee of the company, but will not be paid for the lost work by them, though he will receive some form of payment from the government. He has been told that his expected date to return to work is the 18th of June.
Cardiff University are among others who have moved exams online, and while Ewan is grateful for the clarity that his university have provided, he is concerned about what this new format will mean for his degree. He is struggling to see how the structure of physics exams with which he has become accustomed will translate well online, a concern that has also been expressed by the likes of maths students at the University of Warwick and many others across the country. As is common in times of crisis, however, Students have turned to creativity as an outlet for lamenting the loss of their final term at university, usually peppered with celebrations of achievements and social gatherings with friends. Evian Soon is just one example, who shared with me this poem that she has written for the class of 2020.
Class of 2020. It's not over yet, right? Golden frames beginning to fray, waiting for pictures that'll never be taken. The last I saw you was one of the first times we'd met, I thought, and I wonder if we're strangers again. Is it over yet? I have so many tears unshed, save for the last time we'll see each other. For real this time. But time and time again, the thought of us becomes as distant as a good dream in this living nightmare. I'd save so many words for our last meeting and imagine that moment until it's almost real in my head. Like touching things in a dream when you feel as much pain as you do within it all. That fleeting brush with a phantom that still lingers when you wake. That moment that will never see the light of day, and dreaming of it is like seeing a new color, tasting our last breath. Is it over already? I'd stood between the pink and purple, waiting for you to walk the rest of the way. Close enough that I can touch you and remember the last lines of your face. Your figure which parts the fog, who walks the seabed between the waves that threaten to entwine the way our hands were made to. Your figure which walks to me, but never close enough for me to touch. I am alone in the fog, which thickens as my breathing quickens to the echo of my last words to you, that I threw out without knowing I'd never speak to you again. I thought I'd never know the way you disappear, but I never forget how you did.